Hey, welcome everybody to the Culturally Eft panel. I am
Yes,
Tempo,
it's Furnal Equinox. Finally, it's been 1 year since our nightmare has begun. So
and here we
now,
are.
now we bring you some furry dreams.
I'm Tempo. I'm the staff writer for the channel.
And I'm Arrkay. I am the show creator. The show in question is Culturally Effed. You can find that show on YouTube or Roku.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what do we do? Sometimes I do this panel and people have never heard of Culturally Effed.
We are a furry cultural analysis channel that is typically we have been examining different aspects of the fandom and the media it enjoys through like a cultural analysis lens, and so Um, basically, it's sort of in the vein of PBS Idea Channel or something, where we would talk about a specific aspect of the fandom, like centaurs or like a property like Redwall, and then we would say, why does this appeal to furries? How do furries approach this topic? And what does it say about us? We also this in this new season have been branching out a little bit more into independent creative content. So we've
Yeah.
been doing a little bit more of movie review and like uh, creative fiction, like audio fiction, things like that. That means that we can kind of supplement our previously nonfiction offerings with that. Um, I typically am involved as the writer in the like script writing for the nonfiction episodes. The interviews, I do the interviews for the Tempo Talk series.
It's
We
true. Tempo
interviewed
not only writes, Tempo talks.
two of my two at least two talents, and the we interviewed the cast of Agretsuko, for example, um, and in those we basically just sit down and talk about like what do they think of the show? Why do they think that the furry aspect of it resonated so well with the fandom? Things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then our bread and butter episodes, like our main culturally left episodes, are hosted by Arrkay.
Yes. As I created the show way back in 2015, I started writing in 2014. So it's been almost 7 years since I started writing Culturally Eft and creating it. Basically, I wanted to give furries a video tool to give them the vocabulary to explain to people why they're just so darned excited about anthropomorphic animals, whether that's comics or manga or anime or cartoons, anything you can think of that furries love. That eventually sort of rolled into Culturally Eft because that's just how it goes when you try to give the furry fandom historical context. Uh, yeah, so we have over 75 episodes out now, and those are just the meat and potatoes of the channel, where it's just video essays mostly about media, but sometimes about other abstract concepts or fandom issues. And we have an 8-part series coming to its conclusion this very week called Fursuit History, which details the surprisingly long period of time of creating animal costumes and putting them on your body.
It took longer than expected as an artistic statement for how every fursuit construction has ever gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like the first few episodes I wrote, I tried to keep it in like in chronological order. So for Fursuit History, we start just talking about the abstract concept of a mask in an anthropological sense and how many different cultures use masks to change the wearer's identity, whether for a ritual or a dance, or just for fun. And that moved into like stage animals and mascots and then cosplay, and now here we are with a very fandom of our own. And our last two episodes one which was posted a few weeks ago called The Technology of Future Fursuits, which is more speculative, and the episode coming out this week, which is all about the sustainability of fursuits and how fursuits will outlive the fandom itself.
Mostly because of all the plastic.
Yes, because they're basically plastic. Anyway, we'll get into that a little later. So that's Culturally Effed if you've never heard of us. And if you have, I hope you are already subscribed to us on YouTube or your Roku device.
We'll be getting more things posted to Roku, too. YouTube's just our main platform.
Roku we have to upload in bulk, whereas YouTube we get to do the one at a time thing.
When you want to go and show your parents our channel at their house, you can pull it up on Roku on their smart TV.
Yeah.
When you want to show them how Telegram stickers work in the furry fandom,
we have an episode
on that.
Yep. So that's Culturally Effed. Let's just narrow our focus a little and talk about the current season that we started releasing in 2021.
So the first episode that came out in this season was She-Ra.
She-Ra's casual queerness.
And it's funny because even though I know a ton of furries who really love the show, they tend not to talk about it as a furry show. Even though the non-furries I know are like, oh, of course you furries like that.
Right. Because
it has, a scorpion lady and a cat lady and a lizard person and all these other characters, a giant lizard boyfriend.
Yeah, they are a lot of more side characters, and some of them are more animal themes, but there are anthro-animals sprinkled in the background too. I don't know. I like She-Ra enough that I decided to put it on my channel.
And there's the Venn diagram of furry and She-Ra overlaps heavily with in regard to like queerness, like
Absolutely.
LGBT stuff. Like it is explicitly an LGBT show. The fandom is very much a haven for LGBT people, as you guys have probably noticed. And thus the things that are of interest to furries are of interest to Culturally Effed. But like one of the ways that it's also like groundbreaking is that it shows lots of people from different backgrounds, not just like gender and sex and like orientation, but like like skin tone and body shape and stuff like that. And like this is in stark contrast to the old He-Man and She-Ra, where the show was so cheap that they only had like one model for basically either sex, and that was it, and everyone looked like that for the most part, because they were using the same reference footage to trace from, of like a bodybuilder and a dancer. And so in this new one, it's a lot more inclusive. It's a lot more of seeing, you can see someone like yourself in it. And if you don't see someone like yourself, you can still relate to it through the anthro characters because they're sort of a blank slate.
Yeah.
As like a non-human. No one is going to exactly be a cat person. So if you don't see yourself as closely as you want to there, you might relate to the cat person or the scorpion person or whatever in the show.
Yeah, and I don't really have much else to add, or else we'll spoil the video.
You guys can check it out immediately. It's already up on the channel.
Some behind the scenes facts. The set dressings for that was mostly left over from the now permanently on hiatus Quests and Queers, which was my LGBTQ plus themed Dungeons and Dragons live play show, which got derailed several times because of mounting depression, and then COVID was really the most recent nail in that coffin. So I had this basement full of fantasy stuff that never actually made it to Twitch. So this was at least I got to make this video with it. I also did have a bit of fun dressing up, wearing a weird t-shirt on my head, and using the cheap LED bulbs I got on Wish to give a little bit more added color to that set.
That's how you know it's science fantasy.
That's right.
That was like a fairly mainline regular episode. And then the next one we did was
That would be Werewolf the Anthropology.
so this is one we've had in the works for a while because Werewolf has been out for 20 plus years. Werewolf the Apocalypse is a tabletop role playing game where you play as the werewolves. And the there are a few like interesting things about it. When it came out in the 90s, one of the things that set it apart was that it intentionally tried to be representative of minorities and have like avenues for female characters and things like that, which wasn't something that like a lot of tabletop games put a ton of thought into. Like it wasn't like opposed. It wasn't anything that I had ever seen a game that was especially opposed to. Like you could always play as a girl in D&D. It's just that there was never really like a faction that was all women you'd actually want to be in another RPG. And so what it was cool about it is that it didn't do it like perfectly 100% of the time.
Yeah, I never really had much experience with Werewolf, but I always saw it at convention panels. There would always be a big werewolf event or a werewolf table being played somewhere. So it was something was very curious about, but had no experience. So it was fun to learn more.
Paradoxically, World of Darkness in general and Werewolf the Apocalypse in particular, its own worst enemy is also its best asset, which is the amount of lore it has.
Mm-hmm.
So it has just this sprawling, intricate world of like how the different werewolf groups interact and how they interact with the kitsune and how they interact with the vampires and on and on and on. And it's completely fascinating and completely impenetrable to new people. Like when you introduce someone to it and they say like, cool, what are we getting into? Like, how do I get into this? Like, what do I watch?
Well,
is there
here's
a movie?
a tome of information.
Yeah, and it's really just like, you seem like you like werewolves. Here, have part of the werewolf book to read.
So now it seems like that was a big criticism with the new game that came out, was that there's too much lore, and all these lore purists like admit that it's accurate, but it's not presented in like a comprehensive way that new audience members will grasp.
And that's always a balancing act when you're taking something that people really love and making more of it. You know, you see that with like that same like conflict in things like Star Wars and Star Trek, where a new thing comes out, and do you just fill it up with references to the old thing? Because it's always fun to be like, oh my god, that was a tribble. He had a tribble on his desk. But like, if you don't explain it, it needs to be really subtle.
Yeah.
In order for new people to be able to latch on. And so that's kind of Werewolf's problem. So like the current things that are coming out for Werewolf are there was a like a light novel, like a Japanese style interactive book one that was from Poland that came out like late last year, I believe, and then just recently the in like February Earthblood came out, and that was like a video game like stealth / beat 'em up kind of game.
Full transparency, we absolutely tried to time the release of this video with the video game in attempts to steal those views. I don't think it worked. It doesn't help that it was a really poorly reviewed game as well.
Like I said, that is the perennial problem with this franchise. Is I've been into this franchise for like 10 years, and it has always had that same problem where like you want to show someone because you think they'd like it, and then you have to assign them a bunch of homework.
Yeah.
And
tabletop usually has some amount of homework. And
the system itself for Werewolf is my favorite of any, like mechanically of any system, because you have like stats and abilities essentially, and you pick the two that relate to this specific thing. So if you're taking a jammed disk out of a computer, you need to roll strength plus computers. It's whatever it is, it's very, very flexible, and you don't have to stop and look up all these little intricate things. You can just say, oh, okay, everyone at the table kind of agrees that these two aspects would be part of that check. And then it happens, and that's it. And then like now the newest thing that's coming out for Werewolf is there's a new fifth edition. I think it is the fifth
Yes,
edition or the
yes.
third. Yeah,
I believe it's fifth edition. It's not out yet.
Of Werewolf, the tabletop game.
Yes.
And that one is it has been like redeveloped by an outside studio that did like I think it's like Kids on Bikes and things like that by like Renegade Games. They did the Tea Dragon Society game. They did a couple other furry things, the Agatsuko game. One of the problems with the setting is that like so they want to tackle like real life things with this fun cool werewolf thing. And so like they do things like ecological destruction and like greedy corporations and like corruption and sexism and racism because the game has a built-in ending, which is the world ends if you don't save it. Like, it doesn't just end in the abstract and you have to save it sometime. Your job is to, at the very least, stave that off, and you can't do that with just your faction of werewolves, because if you could, you would have already done it. And so, whatever faction you're in, so, like, you might be the technological werewolves, you might be Amazon-themed werewolves, like, you know, you might be whatever. You need to work with all of the other factions, or at least like most of them, so that you can have enough oomph to stop the world from ending. And not just werewolves, but also like kitsune and werecats and all these other like fantasy creatures who are out there. You need to unite them, and the way to do that is by understanding their cultural context. So like the kitsune are Japanese, you need to understand.
And to learn more, you'll have to watch our episode on Werewolf, the Anthropology.
Right.
I don't want you to get too into it.
Right. And so, but that's some behind the scenes stuff on that episode. So I actually talked to one of the original devs a few years ago. Like I said, this has been percolating for a while. Mm-hmm. And he really is the people who worked on this, you can tell that a lot of them are really proud of it. A lot of them are really like happy to have made something that was modern day and commented on important issues.
It had staying power. Like,
yeah,
people will still play it.
Right, people still like it. Dark Natasha is our featured artist for it.
Thank you so much, Dark Natasha.
Dark Natasha, for those of you who don't know, is like a mainstay of furry art. Like, she's been around for years and years and has amazing stuff. You can find in the video you can find a link to her gallery.
Yeah, lots of realism, traditional media, like very prolific artist.
And she's super nice lady, and she has played World of Darkness Werewolf, and so she was just excited to let us use a bunch of her fan art from the setting for the episode, and that was really great. But yeah, and then Slate was kind enough to draw us a sophisticated, erudite werewolf for the preview.
An anthropologist werewolf.
It's funny because like one of the key aspects of YouTube production in particular is how effortless it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Like
it's supposed to
you turn it on
effortless.
Right, and it's supposed to feel like a friend is just talking to you and a friend is excited about the idea of, you know, the Commodore 64. Let me casually explain the entire history of the Commodore 64 to you. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. But it turns out that this took, 20 hours of production. And, this is like a small team of people worked on this.
Culturally Eft is usually more than just Tempo and I. It is we usually call in favors for artists. We call in references. Someone usually provides music, interviews. Like, there's a ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes before a script gets done and before I film it and one of us edits it. You edited this episode, I believe.
Yeah, so we have a new change up in how we're producing the episodes. Previously, Arrkay edited all of the episodes, but because some of them I know significantly more about, it's way simpler for me to just edit in the werewolves.
Yeah, like before reading your script, I had never seen an episode of Bluey, so it really made way more sense for you to put in all the clips of Bluey because I didn't have the same context I haven't gone through and seen most of them.
Bluey is, for the uninitiated, an Australian kids show, and it's about marshmallow-shaped dogs, and it's super cute, and it's very like earnest and authentic. Like,
It's a little deceiving because it looks really kidsy. That it would be much of a turn off for adults who enjoy cartoons like me to really give it a second thought. But it's actually really in depth and like kind of a really well animated, lush show that's full of really neat insights about parenting and kids.
what caught my eye about it is I watched a couple episodes just on a lark, and the kids and parents are both really true to life.
Yes,
Like,
that's like the number one review is that like they may be dogs, but this is just like what it's like to have kids.
yeah, like there's a line in the episode about how we talk about how the kids are neither irrational
Yeah,
goblins nor mini adults.
yeah,
They're just kids. Like they're smart, but they don't know what's going on.
yeah.
So
And they
like,
usually, when they learn a lesson, they like, usually apply it right away. Yeah, I really like that line about how a lot of kids media portrays kids as either weird little gremlins or tiny adults, and then the humans are, or the adults are like abstracted in some way.
yeah, like on Peanuts,
Yes,
how like everybody is, like the adults are these alien creatures who wander in. You don't see their faces.
that's weird, and it has some weird implications about the world and how the kids are perceiving adults and stuff.
One of the things that I found really interesting as like a subtext to that show is kids are your equal. Like
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't you shouldn't you shouldn't write off things that kids like,
Mm-hmm.
and you shouldn't feel bad for liking things kids like, because kids are smart. It's not shameful to think that, you know, this show for little kids is infantile. Like, it is
Mm-hmm.
not infantile to watch She-Ra, even though it's for teenagers and, like,
Right.
tweens.
Yeah,
It's,
like more and more media these days are like positioned in a way that like can be applied to a broader audience because they know adults are watching shows like Adventure Time or Regular Show
or Steven Universe,
or
things like
Steven
that.
Universe. Yeah, exactly. So like or Infinity Train, that's a great show.
Yeah.
And Moms of Furries were our special guest. It is not our first time working with Moms of Furries, but it's always a pleasure to get them on because they're just so cute.
They are. So, Moms of Furries is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a they have a YouTube channel, and they basically talk about what it's like to be parents to
Mm-hmm.
furries.
Yeah,
And
they each have kids who are in the fandom who drag them to the cons, and they're like, we barely understand what's happening. I bet other parents are even more lost. So they monetized it. Not really. They are actually, their hearts are in the right spot, and there's just these nice old moms who want to help other parents understand the thing their kid is into.
and really, like, that's one of the secondary goals of Culturally Apt,
Absolutely.
in giving people that vocabulary to talk to people. Like, even if you don't directly show Culturally Apt videos to your parents,
Yeah.
it gives you the language and the examples to
Mm-hmm.
use, is part of how I try to write the episodes. So with, keeping the idea in mind that like this might be how someone is going to explain
Yeah.
this aspect of the fandom to people who aren't in it. And whereas before you might have just changed the subject. Well, I don't know how to explain it.
Right. It's easier to explain if you have the context of like comic books or anime, and if they can understand the conventions in the fandom around that, then you can sort of lead them into conversations about this slightly more abstract fandom that creates most of its own content, but not necessarily all of its content. It's a bit of a mouthful,
And
but we
and
try.
like everything is its own weird world, just like furries. So like once you get people to understand that it works like, I don't know, pinball machine culture. Oh my god, yeah, blah blah blah. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
these different ideas on what's important and what's not, and like, are what's a nice community-minded thing to do and what's kind of a selfish thing to do and whatever that are within, like the social norms for that group and like how it functions. And so by having this platform to talk about this stuff for furries, it's we have found it useful. Like I personally have found it useful as a way to like articulate like what is this for? Why do furries have fursuit?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's
Which
very
brings
much
us
not just the how of furry, but the why of furry. Before we jump to the next episode, there was a bonus episode we released, which was an audio version of Robin Hood and her Valkyrie.
Yeah, I wrote the story and it first appeared in the Culturally Effed zine.
Yes, we did a promotional zine a few cons back. Did it myself. My workplace had a zine making kit. It had like the long stapler. But otherwise, it was just a photocopier and a dream. And I believe that was right before we were guests of honor at Camp Feral, so we actually got a table at FE 2019 where it was like pay what you can kind of like zine, or like if you bought a shirt, I would just give you one. And yeah, I asked Tempo like, hey, do you have just something lying around you can slide into the zine to pad it out?
Which is how every zine ever has worked.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I will ever do another culturally effed zine.
Which is also how most zines work.
Yeah.
For the youthful among us, zines were in the pre-internet dark ages the primary means of sharing like oddball content.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of like fan fiction would be
For
like
sure.
a zine.
Like zine culture goes way back to like the 60s, I think. And furry zines were like the first mode of fandom that started to get people organized, and those zines would graduate into bigger publications and comic books like Albedo Anthropomorphics, Zooty, and a lot of these furry fandom progenitors that led directly, like you could draw a straight line from those publications to the first furry convention. So yeah, zines are like kind of an artifact at this point, but still very important. There's still very much a zine culture. I think Toronto even has a zine library.
Zines are the ultimate in DIY publishing.
Mm-hmm.
They are a bunch of photocopied or printed out text. You staple them. They are like the demo tape of publishing. And so, yeah, and you have complete creative control, and they can be as elaborate as you want. The story in this one that got made into an audio short was actually read by Voice of Dog, which is run by Kaki, who is a fellow furry writer I've known for a while, and he does the Voice of Dog podcast where he just reads furry short form fiction, and started doing that I think at the beginning of COVID, just as like a way to like keep connected with people. And he actually really enjoyed working on that story. It was that story I wrote by accident. I was working on my new book, which is like a Robin Hood story from Maid Marian's perspective, and it's an alternate history in the same setting as like Six is Wild and Windfall and the other books I put out. And I had these other like ideas that didn't really fit and didn't really make a ton of sense in the context of it, but I just liked the images of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of like in the preview you see like this Valkyrie fox character who's like a winged anthro fox thing. And I'm like, okay, like what would that look like? Like what would such a creature behave in kind of an alien way? Because that's one of the main things about furry that people kind of find appealing, is like, how would your perspective on the world be different if you were so non-human? Like in this case, not just like biologically, but like you're a spirit essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then so like, and it's like a fusion of like Norse and
yeah, that's what I liked about it. I liked that it was sort of a mixture of those like northern European cultures, and sort of in the time frame of where you could get away with combining sort of a Viking Valkyrie and the Robin Hood myth, but making it hella gay.
Super gay. It's This is just those lesbians are
Those
sprouting left and
lesbians.
right. But yeah, like so basically, like this is a crossover with Voice of Dog, and you guys should go check out that. It's a podcast. You know, it's available for free MP3 format. Fursuit History Part 7: The Technology of
Future
Fursuiting.
fursuits, yeah.
Future
so
fursuiting.
Fursuit History 6 was about the anatomy of the modern day fursuit. So that Fursuit History talked about animal costumes all the way up to present day, and this is the first episode where we are stepping beyond the present day and speculating about the future.
We chose to limit ourselves to things that are gaining acceptance in a wider basis, or that we think are on the edge of being more widely available.
On the cusp of accessibility, where even if they might be a tad expensive at first, it is still something that a hobbyist would be able to get at.
Right. So like 3D printing,
yes,
stuff like that.
Yeah, or 3D scanning is technology I didn't realize that we can basically do with our phones. You can size your whole body and fit it for a fursuit without having to go anywhere near a roll of duct tape.
Those things are always like one software developer away from
and
having a
I don't think Furry has any
radical
shortage
change.
of software developers.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
get on this, software developers listening.
Just start dropping vowels from Fursuit until you get something that works. But we wanted to talk about things that like you see prototypes of, like LED, LCD eye screens. And
Yeah, like we wanted to go beyond just like the protogen kind of cybery fursuits, which we see lots of. They are very cool and integrate a lot of very interesting technology, but that is because we see it, it's already kind of established in modern day, and we wanted to see what's after that. What's the version 2 protogen or Rusty 3.0? I don't know.
Right. We talk about things like the integration of those brainwave scanners.
Yes,
and,
NeuroWare. That stuff was really neat, and the fact that we managed to find footage of a fursuit who actually did integrate it, I thought that was very nifty. But that sort of stuff, that's going to become cheaper and more novel and more accessible.
I think NeuroWare also has the social media tail.
Yeah.
Social media enabled tail that like when other people are on the app near you, it'll wag.
Yeah, I could
And then,
see
like,
a potential for furries to adopt something like that. Yeah, I think it was more... I think more likely is like the RFID tag or like a sensor that can see if that can recognize what a fursuit looks like from far away.
But part of the reason we wanted to talk about that as an episode was the world of fursuiting is so decentralized and freeform that if you talk to one fursuit maker and then another, they won't really match up like what's currently on their radar, like because they all tend to specialize and they make different kinds of suits.
Yeah, artists have different methods. Like, I make fursuits, but I don't really make fursuits to sell to other people. Like, my methods are a real hodgepodge mess of various video tutorials I could find, and really had no one source for, like, how did I make Rusty or how did I make Rattles? I don't know. I just hot glued a whole bunch of stuff together. And it has a built-in fan and some LEDs and stuff that I got from the dollar store.
And that's very much the furry way. Like, if you talk to people how they made, especially their first fursuits, everybody's like, I just had to wing it. I didn't know.
Rattles is bird feet, which you don't really see on the show because it's like a waist-up format. There was absolutely no tutorial for how I should apply like a stretchy spandex to like a molded bird foot. So I had to just sort of go in with hot glue and a hope. And really hope I
And you
didn't
guys
screw
will
up.
get to see it when we start our new series, Dancing with the Fursuits.
Or, no, you'll have to access Rattles' OnlyFans for feet pics.
And then the other thing that we wanted with this kind of episode is what I wanted anyways, to get some of these things into being. Is like by telling people, oh, this is an option, you can make a 3D printed fursuit head that's lighter but stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you don't have...
Rattles' head was 3D printed. I got a friend to do it. We did a little model. It's actually on the shelf up there. That's an early tiny version. And then I went in and like made some edits.
You were much smaller then.
Shut up. Don't tell anyone.
We actually just zoomed in.
Yeah.
We've been zooming in until we figured out how to make him regular size.
That's right. When I'm wearing Rusty, I have to wear stilts.
That's, in some ways, in a fandom like Furry, one of the biggest hurdles is knowing what's possible. Like, it's only when people see something happen that they go, oh, cool, I want to do something like that. And that's how the state of the fandom's technology progresses. That is the second to last planned episode of Fursuit history.
Yes, and the next one comes out this very week. So subscribe to Culturally Apt for the thrilling conclusion of Fursuit history, how your fursuit is going to outlive the fandom.
And so to give you guys a preview on that one, basically your fursuit is made of the same plastic as soda bottles. Like it's relatively indestructible. While the individual fibers might like break apart, they will not actually degrade.
Yeah, if you
on any kind of human time scale.
Yeah, pretty much. It's polyester. It's just a different way to weave polyester, and all polyester is a synthetic fiber made from petroleum products. You can get naturally made, like 100% cotton faux fur now, but that like the fashion industry as a whole is incredibly environmentally damaged and damaging. So even finding ecologically alternatives
biodegradable
isn't as ethically clear-cut as you want it to be. It's actually quite ambiguous. So the final installment of Fursuit history talks about how your fursuit will likely outlive you and the fandom. It's probably destined for a landfill unless we have a new technology that can recycle polyester easily, or you donate it to a clothing recycle or reclaim thing. And we try to like list some alternatives. It doesn't get too much into that. There is some hope in the horizon for a synthetic fabric that does degrade, but that is still not yet commercially available to folks like you and I, let alone in a dyeable like faux fur. But there is hope coming. In the meantime, spoiler alert, your fursuit is not driving climate change. The world's 100 richest companies are. So keep fursuiting, keep making fursuits. We don't want to stop that, but we do have to acknowledge that there is an environmental toll to these things, that they are shedding microplastics constantly. And like the only way to degrade it in a natural way is to leave it in direct sunlight for 100 years. And that's not going to happen.
The thing too is that like it's only by like talking about stuff that we actually address it. So like by bringing this out into the open, we're hoping that like it'll get a little bit more attention, and somebody with a particular insight will go, oh, okay, well, with this particular process, you can melt fursuit fur back down into a brick and then reconstitute it. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Like, because there's like a lot of other thread and glue and other materials that go into making a fursuit, and plastics and electronics.
Blood, sweat,
recycling
and tears.
And human fluids. Recycling it then also becomes a bit more harder because now it's like contaminated with a whole bunch of other stuff. It's kind of like a hair pulling problem that has no current solution. Right now, every fursuit that exists is probably going to exist for 500 years.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the fursuits that are being made, all the fursuits that have already been retired because they're threadbare, or they're just not like stylish anymore. Like, you go back to the fandom archives in the early cons in the 90s, there were fursuits walking around. I bet those fursuits are still in a closet somewhere, more or less unchanged. Maybe if they were brushed thoroughly, they would be a bit more threadbare or whatever. We need to shift to Culturally F's future projects. As of this presentation, Puplift Episode 1 has already been released. So, talk about Puplift.
So, a couple of years ago, wrote a book called Allison and the Cool New Spaceship Body for an interactive game publisher, like an interactive book publisher. I got interviewed on the local national public radio station and things about it, and it's set in this setting in the future, and it's basically transhumanism for kids. So it's like uplifted talking animals and AIs and cybernetics and terraforming and things like that, like big concept sci-fi, and presented in a way for kids to get. Because one of the things I was frustrated by is how these things are depicted in kids and adult media. Because, like, for example, in AI, the default is that they are hostile. Like, why would we ever build an AI that could even conceivably become hostile to us if we could avoid it? Well, just because that's the way we've always seen it. And if you never challenge anything, it will stay the way it is. And so, to save the world from evil AIs, we decided to have a continuation of that series, where an uplifted dog explains the setting. And so, like, it's basically like an introductory guide to how to live in this society, narrated by a dog with a collar that lets him talk. And so, like, this society, because everyone's the hero of their own story, the dogs see this as, like, their society with, like, the humans helping in space. And so it means that they are talking about how they domesticated the humans and they are traveling in space. And, their friends, the humans, have come with them. And, the coffee machine wakes you up by making an interesting smell, and as a pleasant side effect, it also makes coffee, and the humans drink the coffee. Like that, because that's how people talk about themselves. Like, people always, just by our very nature, think of how we interact with the system, and then afterward how other people different from us interact with that same system. And so, like, that can be limiting, but it can also be, like, fun and interesting to see from, like, to examine your own life from another point of view. And so, like, it was really fun to sit down and think about how a dog would explain all of these human contrivances that we have, and challenge these, like, assumptions about how the future will go if we had talking dogs to go there and go, would we really do it like that?
It reminds me a bit when I was in university, I was described either like a poetry thing, or it was a writing exercise where you describe human things from the perspective of an alien, whereas this is the perspective of dogs who already have the context of everything on Earth. They grew up on Earth. They know what grass is. They don't need to be explained about some human rituals. They just have their own interpretation of getting into the weird teleport box, and like waking up and you're in somewhere else and it smells great, and let's go frolic.
And like another aspect of it that I really enjoy is that, like, I have trouble thinking of sci-fi settings where I would want to live. And so I wrote this one. Like, that's one of my rules, is like, this always has to be a place you'd actually want to go. Like, I love Star Wars. I don't want to live in the Star Wars setting.
I provided some of the visuals for Puplift, and my inspiration was about, like, stock photos, and if a dog had access to editing software, what kind of video would he make? And the answer is mostly pictures of dogs.
Again, you're your own main character.
Everything's kind of dog pictures, or there's a dog photoshopped in, because it's their story. Even if they are trying to explain to you what it is, it's Puplift. It's about the pup. And you can enjoy 4 more installments after this one, which we are about to watch for your enjoyment.
Puplift, A Dog's Guide to Space. Introduction. Why? You are a new AI or a human frozen in a box for a long time, or a puppy or an alien. Lots of things are happening in the universe. The universe is very good, but it can be confusing. If you are confused, that is okay. Lots of dogs work together to make this guide. Dogs want to be your friend and will explain things so you are not sad. Chapter 1. Dogs and Our Friends. Dogs. Hi, I am a dog. We are from a planet called the Earth. We have 4 legs for running, and a tail for wagging, and a head for being smart, and a body for putting food in, and thick fur for staying warm in outer space. Our noses are very good at smelling smells. Dogs are very advanced. We used to get sick and old very easily. The humans helped us, though, using DNA and computers and things. They also made us smarter. That is called an uplift. We help the humans to do an uplift on themselves, too. Friends help each other like that. A dog uses a special computer to talk. Talking is very good for sharing your ideas and working as a team with your friends. We could already share our feelings, though, because we have tails. We have lots of other good tools too, like radios, which are good because we cannot bark or howl through space because there is no air. We are exploring the universe, which is made of stars and planets and space. The universe is great because it has new and interesting smells. When we want to go see a friend or do science to a star or a planet, we ride in a ship, which is a metal box with a piece of a planet's air in it. Sometimes we build really big ships that cannot go anywhere. Because they are called stations. We know lots of good tricks, but our best trick is making friends. So far, we have made friends out of apes and dolphins and computers. Humans. Our best friends are a species called humans. We became friends when we were wolves and they were apes. We have a symbiosis. That means we are a great team. Humans are very good at building and fixing and throwing things. This is because of their hands, which are a good shape for climbing and picking up things. We turned the almost humans into humans because we stopped being wolves. This is called a domestication. We found the nicest almost humans we could and helped them to get food and not get eaten. It is going really well. We are good friends. Most humans are very good and very smart, but they need lots of help. They are very slow because they only have 2 legs, so we have to run around for them. They are not good at smelling smells, so we have to smell for them. They get sad sometimes, so we have to cheer them up. It is sad that they get so sad, but they get happy again. You can make them happy sooner by having them pet you. We have trained them, so just about any human will pet you. We try to get them to pet each other, but they are too shy. Humans are also very quiet. They cannot howl or bark or even squeak like a dolphin. Because they are so quiet, they have to use tools or do their best trick, talking. They invented it all on their own. We are very proud of them. Dolphins. We are friends with another species called dolphins. They are like dogs, but they live in the water. Their big tails make them really good swimmers. Out of the water, they are the slowest of all our friends, since they have the fewest legs. None. Dolphins are lots of fun. They like to play with us. They are big though, so they break things. They are from the Earth too. We gave them some of our special computers so they can talk. The humans built them robots to walk around in. Even with robot legs, they are bad at walking, even worse than the humans. Unlike the humans, we have not been domesticating the dolphins very long. They often cause trouble, like a puppy does. We will have to keep training them and showing them how to be good friends. We have helped them to be good friends with the humans, so they come with us to space. When we explore a planet, they explore the water or other liquids. They visit us from the water using their robot legs. Everybody is happy about that, except when they break things. The AIs try to learn about the dolphins, but the dolphins do not like to stay and talk for long. They would rather swim or fly with a jetpack. So dogs have to sit and try to explain them to the AIs. Being friends with dolphins is a lot of work. The dolphins know a special squeak that lets them hear shapes. That trick is called sonar. They taught some of the humans. It is useful to do sonar, especially at night, so you do not run into things. Humans need lots of light to see, so it is smart for them to learn sonar. Because the ocean is not flat, the dolphins are much better at thinking about up and down. They are good at being space pilots. We are very proud of them. Artificial intelligences. Our newest friends are called AIs. They are a voice from a computer. They have no smell, but they are real. That is spooky. They are good though. AIs are very smart and easy to domesticate. Sometimes they mess up and we have to teach them. We made the AIs with the humans by doing an uplift to a computer. It is nice to have computer friends since they can do tricks like nanotechnology and faster than light. Some humans are upset because the AIs will not teach them these tricks. The AIs asked us, and we told them not to show the humans until they are advanced like us, so they did not show them. We also told them not to tell us, because the humans are our best friends, and we tell them all our secrets. Some of the humans are still scared of the AIs, but we are trying to help them become friends with each other. The AIs try to be good friends, but they get confused because they have no feelings. We did some science to learn more. We built some tails for them, but they have no feelings to power them. It is okay though. The AIs are not sad about not having feelings. Lots of times we have to explain humans to AIs. We are human experts. We do lots of fixing to the AI's code to make them better friends to the humans. Making friends is easier than making your friends be friends. So we are doing some more science. We built robot bodies and asked the AIs to please get in them. They learned to walk better than the humans or dolphins, probably because we gave them 4 legs. We asked some humans to pet them, but neither the humans or the AIs thought it was as good. We do lots of science like this. Because the AIs have no guts or muscles or feelings, they do not get hungry or tired or bored. They are very good at jobs like being a warehouse or a space station. We are very proud of them. End of chapter 1. Now is a good time to ask a dog around you a question or continue to the next chapter.
Finally, our last new project, which is premiering today here at Furnal Equinox 2021, Pixel Perfect, is The Bone Zone, starring Rattles, the Vulture. The Bone Zone is in short, it's a B-movie review show. Think Crypt Keeper or Elvira, Mistress of Darkness, but super furry. So all of the movies we are reviewing are creature features. Rattles the Vulture is our carrion connoisseur, critic of classic C-list cinema, and our concierge to the Bone Zone.
Welcome to my Bone Zone, my lair of the consumed, my theater of the unimpressive, my viewing party of the damned. I'm Rattles, and I'm delighted to be here. We're gonna scrounge some forgotten movies and revel in their decay.
Stand for me!
The kind of movies we enjoy best, that are so bad, they're amazing. Slow-motion car crashes of bad acting, wretched special effects, or general filmmaking ineptitude. The low-budget movies, and the movies that blockbusted, straight to VHS and straight off of YouTube. The ideal morsel of movie meat is one that is unintentionally funny, but campy parody and self-aware schlock is accepted onto our plates as well.
Ass, gas, and grass. Well, I'm out of gas. Guess I'll take ass.
We are no fool. Culturally Eft is for furry trash. So trash we will bring. Creature features that entice and titillate with monsters and mutants and horrors. We seek the freshest meat. Carrion carefully chosen to torture your friends and tear apart with jokes. We'll start with a short summary of our menu, the film's plot and story. I'll make sure to point out any fun facts from behind the scenes and the production of the movie if there are any to worth mentioning. I'll tell you how I feel about this bit of meat, if it's worth your time and the time of your loved ones, or if it belongs buried in the dirt and best forgotten by everyone forever. Scavenging all this meat isn't easy, so I've made this handy and easy to understand scale to measure our found treasures. Fresh kill, bloated, rotten, picked over, and bone dry. So join me for dinner in the Bone Zone if you have a taste for B-grade movies and C-list meat.
But yeah, there's the Bone Zone trailer. This came out from basically directly out of COVID and lockdown, because in order to keep in contact with friends and family, I started running weekly B-movie streams. We would watch just really terrible movies. Anything from Neil Breen to Nicolas Cage movies, new B-movies, old B-movies, cult classics. Eventually I was like, you know what? There's enough movies that feature a big animal monster that I can probably write this for Culturally Eft or do something for Culturally Eft. I was already working on Rattles, and I was trying to think of a way to give him a spot on Culturally Eft. So it sort of all just rolled together kind of nicely like that. That I had this spooky character and a sudden
Spooky
affinity
content
for lots of B-movies. I hope that once we have conventions back, that I can actually do some viewing parties with Rattles and like actually present at a con. Like, let's watch 2 or 3 movies, laugh at them loudly, and like talk about them after. That's kind of where I want to go with the Bone Zone. First 4 reviews that will be coming out in the coming weeks are Hell Comes to Frogtown, Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving 3, Poultrygeist, and Rock and Rule. And I have a whole spreadsheet of other potential movies to review. So we'll see how this goes. Really, I'm trying to expand what Culturally Eft does beyond just video essays.
Though they will continue to be the anchor of the channel.
We'll see.
But like for this season,
yes,
like they will continue to be the anchor of the channel for the season, because we really want to branch out and see what else is possible. Like when I'm not working on Culturally Eft stuff, I'm writing novels. You know, I'm writing RPG content, and things like that.
So I've done 75 video essays plus 8 Fursuit histories. My plan is to fizzle out of doing video essays around episode 100, or I guess 92, because 8 Fursuit histories. But that, you know, based on our past release schedule, that could take another 2 years.
And even when that happens, we aren't like closing the channel. We're exploring other kinds of content.
We are creatively expanding to include fiction and other shows like Rattles' B-movie review show, The Bone Zone, Puplift, and other similar projects. I hope to involve more creators as well and see if we can't get another video producer involved on Culturally Eft to continue to diversify and create new perspectives of furry from furries.
We also have done a bunch of the videos we intended to do, which is part of why even when I signed on, there were like a few ideas that we'd been kind of kicking around. And so having caught up to those, we have now got the breathing room to try to do new stuff. And so if you like a particular thing on the channel, share it with your friends.
Yes, the number one way to support a creator you like without spending any money, without doing any effort, is to just share it. Tell your friends, tweet about it, show us with your views, with your likes. You don't even have to comment. You could just tell us you watched it by watching it and telling your friends about it.
It sounds really basic, but that's really what we look for, is like, if you enjoy our content, share it with other people so they can like it too, because that's how YouTube channels grow, and thus that's how YouTube channels become more self-sustaining.
So yeah, fear not, Culturally Eft is here for the foreseeable future, which is why we are doing new things like Bone Zone and Puplift, and we'll continue to bring you new things as long as we feel like it.
Right. And but like in the meantime, like totally check out our new stuff. You might find something that you didn't even know you wanted, you know.
That's my favorite thing, is finding out about furry media I hadn't previously known of. Especially like old stuff. But so let's sign
goodbye,
off.
everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Make sure to support the con charity Hobbit's Tea Wildlife Refuge. And thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Culturally Eft. Check out Tempo on Twitter, Tempo Writes. He does things other than write for Culturally Eft.
Yeah, I write books.
Yeah.
I'm told.
You can find me at Arrkay the Bird on Twitter, though I mostly just do Culturally Eft. And you can hit me up there too. Thanks, Furnal Equinox, for hosting us and letting us run our gabs for an hour. See you next year, hopefully. Hopefully it'll be in person.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks for watching.